Recently, I was asked to do a video clearing up all the confusion over the Bigfoot DNA and the Bigfoot DNA studies. So, here goes. All the items I'm using today come from doubtfulnews.com. I realize, yes, it's a skeptical website and it's run by skeptics, but I feel in this case they'd be more objective than Bigfooters would in this issue, on these issues. First of all, we're going to talk about Dr. Melba Ketchum and her study. This is from November 24th, 2012, which is right around the time that the DNA study was announced, or the results of the DNA study was announced, I should say. Right around the time, but there was no paper released as of yet at that time. Quoting from the article, no, a paper has not yet been released with the results, but because Igor Burtsev spilled the beans earlier, he was very excited. In the press, Dr. Melba Ketchum has issued a press release regarding the results of the DNA study that she led that has been in process for 5 years. So at that point, it was started in 2007. From the press release, a team of scientists can verify that their 5-year-long DNA study, currently under peer review, confirms the existence of a novel hominin hybrid species, commonly called Bigfoot or Sasquatch, living in North America. Researchers' extensive DNA sequencing suggests that the legendary Sasquatch is a human relative that arose approximately 15,000 years ago as a hybrid cross of modern Homo sapiens with an unknown primate species. The study was conducted by a team of experts in genetics, forensics, imaging, and pathology, led by Dr. Melba S. Ketchum of Nacogdoches, Texas. In response to recent interest in the study, Dr. Ketchum can confirm that her team has sequenced 3 complete Sasquatch nuclear genomes to determine the species is a human hybrid. The genome sequencing shows that Sasquatch mtDNA is identical to modern Homo sapiens, but Sasquatch new DNA is a novel, unknown hominid related to Homo sapiens and other primate species. Our data indicate that the North American Sasquatch is a hybrid species, the result of males of an unknown hominid species crossing with female Homo sapiens. Now that's quoting from the press release by Dr. Melba Ketchum and her camp. This is what Sharon Hill of Doubtful News has to say about this whole thing. What is wrong with this story? Oh, where to begin? We don't know who the team of scientists is. Melba has been silent. The collected data is suspect, the analysis is suspect, the conclusions are suspect. Everything is suspect because there is no data for anyone else to examine, the procedure and results have not yet been published, and there is no other reliable physical evidence, traces, or history of such an indigenous people. So the claim is that, genetically, Sasquatch Bigfoot is a human hybrid. Dr. Ketchum remarks that they must be recognized and protected as indigenous people. As a background, this is a long and horribly confusing and ridiculous story about how and from whom the samples were collected, who is leaking info to whom, Melba's encounters with a family of Bigfoot, firing of publicists, rumors of publishing in Nature, promises, promises, promises. All of that will be wiped away if only there is produced actual solid evidence of the incredible claims. The current attitude of many Bigfooters is extreme skepticism of Dr. K's claims. It's just been too weird of a trip. It's also been highly unprofessional the way the whole story has played out, and so this press release continues that trend. Still waiting. Update November 26, 2012. There has understandably been some scientific interest in this announcement. It had many scratching their heads. They have begun to wade into the Ketchum study circus just now are discovering the long history of the project. They also have made some interesting observations. So that's just a little bit of background on this whole Melba Ketchum DNA study. You can tell it wasn't very professionally done. It wasn't very professionally researched. Later on, eventually, Dr. Ketchum released a paper on her own and created her own journal rather than waiting to see if another journal would pick up the results of the study. Dr. Ketchum received quite a bit of criticism for doing just that. So, really, I mean, the way she handled it, the way it was handled by her colleagues and by other associates, was just not very professional and just not according to Hoyle. Story. There was an interview with Dr. Todd Distel in the first episode of Monster Talk, where he talked about the Ketchum study, and he is a DNA scientist, and a geneticist. Also a professor of anthropology at New York University. His research specialties include primate evolution, genetics and mitochondrial DNA, and analytical techniques of phylogenetic systematics. Actually, I was wrong. A bit of a correction. He actually did appear on the very first episode of Monster Talk, but that episode did not air around December 5th, 2012. So I wanted to make that correction. Says he had previously appeared on the very first episode of Monster Talk to talk about cryptid, unknown animals' DNA, and the testing of unknown samples. This time he volunteered his thoughts about the information released regarding the extraordinary claims by Ketchum, a veterinarian. And then the press release is quoted. I already read the press release just a few minutes ago. The fact that this extraordinary claim was not accompanied by a paper and supporting data was a giant red flag for Distel. He notes that science by press release never turns out well, especially when the information is provided by a for-profit company, as is Ketchum's DNA Diagnostics. And a little further note to add to that, DNA Diagnostics was given an F as far as rating the company and its effectiveness to test DNA. Dr. Distel goes on to cite 4 other key areas that made him question the credibility of the entire endeavor. Number 1, Ketchum's experience. Dr. Distel said that she did not have any publications. This is actually incorrect. She does. At least 4 according to a PubMed search, but she is not the lead author on any. Considering the gravity and complexity of this study, that does not bode well for her experience. However, she does claim that there are other authors. No one has spoken up to say that they are included. Tremendous secrecy for such a huge finding is very suspicious and suggests that true experts have not actually looked at it. 2. Primate evolution is a small area of expertise. A peer review process for such a paper would have virtually guaranteed that Dr. Distel would have either been a reviewer or have known someone who was. Peer review does not have non-disclosure agreements, as it was rumored that this study had. So word does get around. If a paper was submitted to a major peer-reviewed journal, since it's such a blockbuster finding, it would have been at least inside knowledge. This increases the chances that the paper actually does not exist or is in publication process with a less than reputable or cryptozoological journal. 3. Just having modern human mtDNA, mitochondrial DNA, is not enough to conclude hybridization. While many primate species have evidence of hybridization in their evolutionary lineage, that is not the only conclusion that can be made here. Contamination is still a possibility. An alternate explanation proposed in the past 6 months, as rumored in Bigfootery circles, mostly forums, was that the DNA samples may have come from an isolated Native American tribe, may account for 15,000 years of variation. This genetic code might be just different enough from other modern humans to raise questions or be passed off as Bigfoot DNA. The positing of an unknown primate existing 15,000 years ago is not plausible. 15,000 years ago, humans were us. This is a very short span of time evolutionarily. There is no evidence that another primate that we have not discovered was living at the time in order to mate with human females. In addition, the mention of a non-human sequence is confusing. If it's non-human or unknown, what does it most closely match? If it matches close to bear, bacteria, plants, whatever, that would give us a better idea about a reasonable interpretation. The use of unknown does not make sense in terms of science. Its use sparked the mention of a so-called angel DNA, further decreasing the capacity of onlookers to take this seriously. Because all these arrows point to implausibility, Dr. Distel is not optimistic about the claim being true. But the major hole in this entire story is that there's no data and there's no body. We can't know what is being described, how it was tested, and what details support the conclusion. We do not have the specimen that produced DNA. We are left in the dark. Also, it could be we're being strung along with an elaborate story. Each day that goes by that a paper does not appear, but more rumors and excuses do, the odds increase that this claim about Sasquatch Bigfoot is bogus or wrong. What is nearly certain is that no matter what this paper says, if it comes out at all, it will not be the final word on Bigfoot's existence. Igor Burtsev, a Russian Bigfoot Yeti researcher who originally leaked the results of the study via his Facebook page, declared this news. Read the paper. The reviewed journals in the U.S. refused to publish the paper. That is why Dr. Ketchum has sent it to me to arrange publishing in any Russian-reviewed journal. And I showed to our geneticists and understood that it was a serious work. I gave it up to the journal, now it's under reviewing. It was awfully convenient. Show us the rejection notice, because I can't believe one word from any party in this circus. And I thought I would add that, as far as I know, it has not been published in any Russian journal. There are at least two scenarios here. Number one, Burtsev is a loose cannon. Or two, he is doing the work here to set the stage where the study was hyped, picked up by the media, and then falls because of mean old American closed-minded science. He will redeem it in Russia, where Bigfoot is welcomed with open arms. The story does not now match with Melba's own spokesperson, Robin Lynn, who says the paper is still in review and very scientific. And then he doesn't match his own story from the Facebook page of Coalition for Reason, Science, Sanity, and Bigfoot Research. This is quoting Igor Burtsev. Yes, the paper of Dr. Ketchum is under reviewing, and it is worth to be published. Just the situation now reminds me of the war between North and South in the beginning of USA history. There are a lot of her supporters as well as a lot of her opponents and even some enemies. The problem is that some people absolutize the evidence. Unfortunately, science now is too conservative. 1/3 of the population of the USA believes in Bigfoot existing, but academic science even does not want to recognize the problem of their existing or not, just rejecting to discuss this question. In such a condition, this subject is under discussion of the broad public. We can't wait decades when scientists start to study this problem. Forest people need to be protected now, not after half a century when science wakes up. Read the paper. The reviewed journals in the U.S. refused to publish the paper. That is why Dr. Ketchum has sent it to me to arrange publishing. I believe I read that part already. Anyway, I informed the public about the results of the study. The public waited for this info for more than a year. A lot of rumors were spreading around. And the public has the right to know it. Nevertheless, science says about it. I think that should say what science says about it. Via democracy, this many people believe, so it must be true. As I've said before, to make such an extraordinary claim is to put yourself out on a limb. This limb is cracking. Had this been a solid piece of work with actual experts involved, it would have been published. In addition, he mentions that there is a race to publish the paper. That is not done in American science. A journal will have exclusive publishing rights to a paper. This says oodles about Burtsev and perhaps the community they are now in with this study. And quoting once again from Igor Burtsev, I didn't suppose, people, that you are so much seek of the publication in a reviewed journal. I thought that more important is the result of study, and I informed the public about it in short. But as you are so seek in scientific publication, I talked only about my side. I meant the publication in Russia. Yes, the process of reviewing here is going, but not so quick as desired. Yes, I submitted the paper to a Russian journal, and the process of reviewing here started while the journal to which Dr. Ketchum sent the paper had not yet reflected the interest to publish it. But Dr. Ketchum submitted the paper to the journal on your side again, and now they admitted it for reviewing. Thus, now a kind of competition arose. Which journal is ready to publish it earlier and ensures her that one will publish it, and another one will be asked to stop the process. I explained such a state with publication in Facebook before, a couple of days ago. I thought that you know. But I see some reporters wish to dramatize the state and just a little correcting my words, pass some disinformation to make people excited. By the way, some of those posts are from Igor Burtsev's Facebook page. Just thought I'd mention that. The posts that I read, the way that he was quoted. When I was quoting him, I was quoting from his Facebook page. So, as the delays, secrecy, and strange rumors continued to substitute for any solid information, it became crystal clear that this project is not quality science. It instead looks more like sham inquiry, where they had the answer they wanted and worked backwards to get the desired result and maximum media attention. All of Dr. Ketchum's associates, none of which are doing her any favors right now by talking, are Bigfoot believers. Burtsev thinks that they are paranormal, dimension-shifting creatures. Robin Lynn thinks they live in her backyard. Some of us are dubious that there ever was a paper submitted to a journal at all, and that there is a well-worn rumor that this hype will turn into nothing but a media platform for Ketchum. Does this paper exist? Is this all an elaborate hoax? I have to side with Matt Moneymaker of Finding Bigfoot here, who has for a while trumpeted that indeed it is a sham. Bigfoot once again goes the scientifical route and does an end run around science protocol. Good luck ever being taken seriously, Dr. Ketchum. You have a huge hole to dig yourself out of. Well, now that's the whole sordid story about Dr. Ketchum and the supposed DNA, example. Now we're going to move on to Brian Sykes. Now, for those who saw the program titled Bigfoot: The New Evidence, there was a series of 3 programs which originally were broadcast in England and Great Britain, and then they were broadcast here in the United States in 2014 on National Geographic Channel. The article in question is titled "Sykes' Reputation and His Yeti Project Gets Slammed," and this is from April 5th of this year. As we updated yesterday, Brian Sykes' claim of mystery DNA is being hyped by the media, apparently ahead of his new book about his Yeti Bigfoot project, the results of the Oxford-Lausanne Collateral Hominid Project, which had a goal of collecting organic material for so-called cryptids, including that which people believe may be from Bigfoot, and analyzing the DNA in the samples. His television coverage was sound. This paper was published in a reputable journal, but then it was all downhill from there. His results were challenged twice, and I'll read both those articles in a bit. Matter of fact, maybe I'll just read the first one now. The article in which Dr. Sykes' findings were challenged was Sykes' Yeti polar bear data conclusion is challenged, and this was from December 17th of 2014. There is an update to the story about ancient polar bear DNA found in the samples gathered while searching for the Yeti in Asia. It throws doubt on the results that there is a new type of hybrid bear. And according to the press release, last year, Oxford University genetics professor Brian Sykes revealed the results of DNA tests on hares said to be from the abominable snowman. The tests matched the samples with the DNA of an ancient polar bear, but 2 other scientists have said reanalysis of the same data shows the hares belong to the Himalayan bear, a subspecies of the brown bear. The results of the new research by Ceridwen Edwards and Ross Barnett have been published in the Royal Society Journal, Proceedings of the Royal Society B. Brian Sykes' original samples, namely 2 from Ladakh, northern India, and Bhutan, were a genetic match for a 40,000-year-old jawbone from a polar bear that lived in the Norwegian Arctic. At the foundation, though, all that meant was that the DNA sequence was shared. However, one possibility that arose was that there was a hybrid bear out there, and that new bear may account for some Yeti sightings. Sykes was interested in expeditions to look for the hybrid bear, but now that idea is on more shaky ground. The authors of the rebuttal challenged Sykes' claim that his samples did not match modern examples of the bear species. They found rare brown bear samples that also match with the polar bear sequence. They state this is not surprising since they share a common ancestor. More for the press release. In their paper, Dr. Edwards and Dr. Barnett said their tests identified the hares as being from a rare type of brown bear. The scientists said the Himalayan bear is a subspecies of the brown bear that lives in the higher reaches of the Himalayas, in remote mountainous areas of Pakistan, Nepal, Tibet, Bhutan, and India. Its populations are small and isolated and is extremely rare in many parts of its range. The common name for these bears in the region is dudste, a Nepalese term meaning cattle bear, and they have long been associated with the myth of the Yeti. This reevaluation of the Sykes DNA data is published in the same journal that published his result as a comment. It's an excellent example of the back and forth that occurs in professional and scientific discussion. The paper is, and there's a link here behind the paywall though. What now? Well, we know we have bears in this area, still no Yeti, and perhaps not even a new bear. But this pursuit of the Yeti is a boon to the study of bear genetics. There remains good reason to suspect that at least some Yeti reports are actually bear sightings. The study of mystery animals should go where the data leads. If that occurs, we will surely gain much of value, no matter what the result. Compare this progress that went down an unexpected interesting path to the no progress occurring in Bigfoot Sasquatch study in the U.S. It's a different world entirely. The second article is titled New Paper Taking Another Look at Yeti Data Finds No Evidence of New Bear in the Himalayas. And this is from March 16, 2015. More news in the Sykes Himalayan Yeti saga. If you recall, Oxford geneticist Brian Sykes published a paper in a prestigious scientific journal in July 2014. The results were a disappointment for Yeti supporters, establishing that the mystery samples of DNA were not primate but normal animals and human. The Sykes et al. Study did, however, yield something indeed interesting. A possible new bear species is one interpretation. Even though the results seemed conservative to those looking for a blockbuster finding, just another bear, the work appeared to be important for overall bear taxonomy. Another paper has appeared that concludes Sykes's results aren't really anything to crow about, and certainly not a foundation to mount an expedition to look for a new bear that may account for the Yeti reports. Doubtful News reader Ronald Pine is co-author to Eliezer E. Gutierrez on this new open access paper published today in the journal Zookeys. The title says it all. Gutierrez E. Pine RH 2015. No need to replace the anomalous primates with an anomalous bear, Carnivora ursidae. Zookeys 487, 141 to 154. Their results of a new examination of the gene sequences by Sykes and others show that there was not enough information there to support the Sykes et al. Suggestion that there may be a new hybrid bear in India and Bhutan. The Gutierrez/Pine study included direct comparisons of 12S rRNA sequences of the bear species Ursus maritimus, polar bear, and U. arctos, brown bear, with the two questionable sequences identified by Sykes' study. Sykes' study had concluded that these were previously unrecognized bear species, color variants of U. maritimus or U. arctos/U. maritimus hybrids. However, what the new review found was few inconsistent differences between these two species when examining the comparative fragment. In other words, there was nothing there on which to base the hybrid finding. From the paper, the molecular DNA data obtained by and analyzed by Sykes et al. 2014 are not informative enough to suggest the possibility that a taxonomically unrecognized type of bear exists in the Himalayas. The interpretations made by Sykes et al. With respect to the possible taxonomic identity of the focal sequences were based merely on the results of a blast run against GenBank sequences. The short fragment sequences of the mitochondrial 12S rRNA gene obtained by Sykes et al. From their hair samples and homologous fragment sequences of Ursus arctos and Ursus maritimus are all identical except in forward position. The authors say that the data that Sykes was working with would not be expected to be of such a nature as to rule out the hypothesis that the DNA was simply normal brown bear. Earlier this year, there was a rebuttal to the Sykes study from Edwards and Barnett, who also concluded the DNA was from Ursus arctos, subspecies Isabilis, but the mistakes were due to degradation of the sample. Gutierrez and Pine say that if degradation occurred, it may not even matter. The simplest conclusion that can be made from the results was that it was from brown bear U. arctos. The Gutierrez and Pine study also pointed out some interesting findings on the populations of Asian black bears, Ursus tibetanus, and recommend more work in bear population studies, including use of museum specimens for DNA sequencing. I contacted Dr. Pine for his thoughts on why he undertook this study and what it means for bears and Bigfootery. He remarked on his initial surprise that the Sykes team did not seem focused on brown bear genetic makeup, since the animal is well known in the area and an obvious potential source of DNA. Normal range of variation in the genetic sequences should be an important consideration. Pine also pointed out that the Sykes team was incorrect in concluding that their matching sequence had come from a fossil polar bear. The sequence is also part of the modern polar bear genetics. Pine does not see a good reason to support the expense and effort of an expedition to the Himalayas to search for an unknown species of bear, as proposed by Sykes. Now that two papers suggest that perhaps there may be a bias that resulted in a less than adequate effort to attempt to falsify an extraordinary claim, excuse me, what is going on with the entire project? Nope, it was not a Yeti, but it wasn't a new bear either. Did the Sykes team want some sort of dramatic outcome to continue the project and squeeze something out of it? Recall that a co-author of the paper was a Bigfoot believer, Redmond A. Mullis Jr., president and chairman of the board of Bigfootology. The Eureka Alert release for the new paper notes that the study's initial premise of testing for an anomalous primate and the claim for a possible unknown type of bear has been popular with the media. This project was the first time that a scientist with Sykes' academic credentials looked at the possibility of Yeti DNA. Hopes were high. Sykes has a book on the way, a book that is clouded with a good bit of confusion as to its premise, considering the findings and current rumor on its marketing angle. And there's a link about the book, which is called The Nature of the Beast, the first genetic evidence on the survival of ape men, Yeti, Bigfoot, and other mysterious creatures into modern times. We're not sure what is going on here, but from the wishful beginnings of possible finding conclusive proof of a Yeti, we are down to details of bear families. Interesting, but not quite made for television and big book sales. See also Skeptic, Insight, newly released challenge to Sykes' Yeti DNA findings. Update, Sykes responds in an inappropriate defensive way. And the quote is from Dr. Sykes. The explanation by Gutierrez and Pine might be right, or it might not be, Sykes wrote. The only way forward, as I have repeatedly said, is to find a living bear that matches the 12S RNA and study fresh material from it, which involves getting off your butt, not an activity I usually associate with desk-bound molecular taxonomists. Sykes said the real heroes of the piece are the people who actually went to the Himalayas, spoke to the local people, found these hares, had the wit to keep a few, and then contributed them to the study. He noted that his book about the project, titled The Nature of the Beast, is set for... I'm going to try and see if I can scroll down the page. It's not allowing me to do that. Okay, here we go. Never mind. I have to scroll back up. For publication in April. As for the expedition to the Himalayas, Sykes said he was not in a position to comment. This is starting to smell funny. So I realize that's a bit of a convoluted way to kind of come around to explaining both the DNA studies, but I hope this is helpful to anybody who might have been confused about this whole thing. All the links to all the articles that I've read will be in the description below. So take from it what you will.